Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we're going to look at some twerps and their over-the-top revenge stories.
No more Mr. Nice Guy. No more.
Who doesn't love a good revenge story? The wronged person taking justice into their own hands and meting out vengeance where and how they see fit. And, seeing the person that wronged the good guy get theirs in the end. It's just like everybody's got one of those fantasies, right? But sometimes, they're just a bunch of dorks in movies. And, it's not that they didn't get shit on. It's just, the amount of revenge they end up taking on the other people is a bit much. It's a bit much. So we're going to go in order of increasing wrong done to the twerp versus the amount of revenge that they take. So our menu is going to include The Mask, Phantom of the Paradise, and The Toxic Avenger. Don't you just miss the mid-90s when Jim Carrey just kind of ruled the world for a few years? The second film in Jim Carrey's meteoric rise to power, the proof of concept film after Ace Ventura, was The Mask, based on the Dark Horse comic of the same name by John Arcudi and Doug Mahnke. The Mask, the comic, versus The Mask, the movie, are very, very different animals. The Dark Horse comic is a revenge story, at least at the beginning, but it is over the top, bloody, gory, and very much not meant for children. The Mask, the movie, is, we'll go with not exactly children's movie, but we will go with family fare. Stanley Ipkiss is the opening character of the Mask comic book. There's several people that end up wearing the mask, but in the movie, it is just Stanley Ipkiss is our hero, played by Jim Carrey. And man, I mean, just from the start, his name is terrible, Stanley Ipkiss, and he's just a middle management guy at the local bank in, I believe it's Edge City, which is a reference to Tim Leary, I believe. He gets shit on by just about everybody. He gets taken advantage by his co-workers who purport to be friends. He gets taken advantage by his landlord who treats him like shit. I mean, the mechanics, of course, run him ragged, and the club owners, make fun of him because he's not a hot broad. But here's the thing. Stanley kind of invites it. He is a self-described nice guy, and the nice guy angle to this movie does not age well. And not just in terms of specifically relationships between men and women where the guy purports to be, hey, I'm just the nice guy, why don't you want to date me? But it's just there's a difference between being a nice person and a pushover, and Stanley is definitely a pushover. So when he gets the mask, which in the movie version is the mask of Loki, the Norse god, who would later be played by Alan Cumming, I think, in a sequel that I just can't bring myself to watch. He goes after all of them, and he has silly, over-the-top revenge. He goes after the local punk gang that's making fun of him and treating him like shit. He scares them half to death. He shoves some mufflers up the mechanics' asses, which actually is fairly close to what happens to the mechanics in the Dark Horse comic, but they actually end up dying. But then everything else just tends to be, good-hearted pranks that get swept up into a local mob war that kind of goes crazier and crazier. But, Stan, yeah, you just could have stood up for yourself a bit more. And a lot of the things that happened to you wouldn't have happened. And then you wouldn't have to have your silly, supernatural, ridiculous revenge as just, entertaining as it is, start to finish. Man, The Mask holds up. The Mask is a really, really fun movie. It's hard to imagine other people other than Jim Carrey doing it. Of course, you think Robin Williams could do it. As it turns out, Jamie Kennedy couldn't do it. In addition to being a good movie, it's a nice little time capsule of CGI in the 90s in terms of starting to use it well. They're not just using it to, they create an environment in the film where everything has a slightly heightened reality. The colors pop more, everything looks a little weirder and goofier to begin with, so that when the CGI enhancements start happening, Yes, it is. This is not a normal thing, but no, it's not so absurd that it takes you right out of the film. And again, it's The Mask, guys. Just go watch it. It's awesome. Then there's Winslow Leach, the titular Phantom of the Paradise in the 1970s musical send-up of Alfred Hitchcock films and Phantom of the Opera, co-written and directed by Brian De Palma. Winslow Leach is played by the late William Finley, and he is gawky and delightful throughout the entire film. Winslow is a musician of substance, and he is tired of bands like the Juicy Fruits that are just doo-wop assholes. He wants to make an opera adaptation of the story of Faust, and only he can do it. And anybody that gets in his way is going to be in trouble. But luckily, Swan, played by Paul Hucklebuck Williams, the greatest rock producer in the world, decides to take him under his wing and, hey, I'll give you the money to finish your cantata and get everything straight. Everything's going to be fine. Everything is not fine. In fairly short order, Swan has the living shit beaten out of Winslow. He gets him arrested on false charges, thrown into a prison where dental experiments are performed on him, giving him a grill that most rappers could only dream of. And that is all the stuff that Swan does to him. Where Winslow starts contributing to his own misery, outside of trusting anybody in the recording industry, is he breaks out of prison, goes to try to destroy Swan's recording press, and ends up, falling into the press and, somehow not getting his head crushed, but being horribly disfigured, hence why he wears the mask. And then the fun really begins in earnest, because Winslow takes up residence in Swan's stately pleasure dome, the Paradise, where it's supposed to be, equal parts Swan's mansion, recording studio, and arena theater event site. And Winslow is going to destroy everything and everyone involved in it until he is satisfied, until, again, having learned nothing, he trusts Swan some more and ends up signing his soul to Swan to finish his cantata, and to make sure that Phoenix, played by the delightful Jessica Harper, gets to sing it. And wouldn't you know it, Swan betrays Winslow, and everything gets much, much worse. There's some nice Buried Alive, Cask of Amontillado references, more murders. I mean, we have explosion murders, plunger attacks, electricity, which is not only just, a fake stage lightning bolt is thrown at Beef, but then he gets electrocuted anyway. So it's like art becoming life. It's kind of awesome. And then everybody dies at the end of it, except for Jessica Harper, because why would you kill Jessica Harper? But in this one, it's, yes, there are some situations, Winslow brings part of it on himself in the beginning, in terms of trusting a record producer, and then accidentally throwing himself into a recording press. But it's a bit more muddled, because Winslow, things are definitely done to Winslow that are that are just beyond the pale. But at the same time, Winslow keeps trusting the wrong people over and over again. So it's like, dude, you got to start making better life choices. And by starting, in your next life, because you're gonna die. Sorry for spoilers for a movie that is over. God, it is over 30 years old. So, you should go out and watch it, because it is amazing. Finally, we have the Toxic Avenger, the first superhero from my beloved home state of New Jersey. Melvin Junko did nothing to nobody at any point. Melvin is the janitor at the local trauma health spa. And yes, he is just a doofus moron that just does nothing right, and he's just a loser. But you know what? He wasn't hurting anybody, but these friggin' jock assholes keep picking on him and setting him up and putting him in a tutu and scaring him and making fun of him until he falls out of a window directly into an ill-placed vat of toxic waste, and then he bursts into flames and runs down the street, and honest to God, nobody in trauma puts him out. They all just keep laughing at him and pointing while he's running down the street in broad daylight on fire, and nobody helps him. But because this is a superhero movie, what does toxic waste or anything radioactive do? Give you cancer? No, absolutely. Of course not. It gives you superhuman size and strength. And in the case of Melvin, an uncontrollable urge to mash evil. Oh my god, this movie's amazing. And mash evil he does. This is what's great. Melvin's revenge in this movie, when you boil it down, is living well. Because yes, he ends up going after all the people that were responsible for him turning into the Toxic Avenger. But he goes after them not because they messed with him, but because they were committing other crimes. They were all like murdering and running, well, like they were drug dealers, which of course does not require a death sentence. It's more the spree killing, running people over bit. That is the part that, you know, deserves murder. And so they all get murdered. You know, for justice, which it sort of is. And, you know, Jersey Boys got to stick together. So, you know, we go from the Mask, who gets revenge when maybe he deserved it, deserved revenge, maybe he didn't. We get the Phantom, who definitely deserves some revenge, but also brought a lot of it down on him. And then we have the Toxic Avenger, a true hero, who goes after people not because they have wronged them, but because they're wronging other people. God damn it, these movies are great. Twerps and their over-the-top revenge stories. The Mask, the Phantom of the Paradise, and the Toxic Avenger. All those. That's just, love that kind of synchronicity. Go watch these things. Go take revenge on those that have wronged you, and I'll see you guys next week.